He is taking time from his vacation to give us one last little synopsis of the final weekend before this 2-week break. By the way, are we just unanimous here? Does the hockey media just love the 2-week break? Because most of the hockey media gets the time off.
Yes.
As he speaks to us from Mexico.
100% yes.
I mean, the overwhelming feedback on Twitter, like, because again, only the Torontonian markets are really covering the Four Nations. So everybody's like, bye, see you in 2 weeks. And everybody seemed to really enjoy this little. But the Canucks also will benefit from this. The Quinn Hughes news, obviously, Jeff taking center stage over the course of the weekend. And if you are a Canucks fan, my goodness, is this only good news in your books? What do you think?
Well, before I get to Quinn Hughes, let me just say, and I don't want to out him, so I'm not going to name names, but there was a Canadian NHL general manager on my flight here to Cabo. So if teams are making deals during this break and there's one team that seems absent in all the activity, you can probably do some math here. But look, GMs are allowed to get breaks too. And in this technological world we live in, I'm coming to you from Cabo and work can be done. But I'm just saying there was an NHL GM. He was way up at the front of the plane. Not a surprise. Yes. So a getaway for everybody, except Quinn Hughes, although I don't know what his plans are on the break. But no, I mean, look, I think a mature decision on his part. I think Canuck fans should applaud it. I think, though, also it speaks to the seriousness of the injury, that if there was a way that he could have gone and skipped the first game but tried to be ready for the Canada game next Saturday, I thought that was plausible. But this tells you that he knows his body best, and in consultation with Canucks medical staff, the best course of action here was to sit this thing out. So with the 2-week break, the hope is that he can heal up. He's been skating. Rick Tocchet said on Saturday that he had gone for another good skate in the morning. We saw him midweek. And the fact that he's on the ice tells you that he's able to get around, that this isn't something that keeps him away from the rink entirely. But fingers crossed for him. Hockey's just way better with Quinn Hughes in it. It's more fun, usually more exciting. And yeah, I mean, if anybody can use a 2-week break, not only for his hand, but obviously for this oblique injury as well, get him rested up and ready, because they hit the ground running out of the break with 2 sets of back-to-backs. They're in Vegas and Utah, and then a couple of days, and then the 2 Southern California teams. So 4 games in 6 nights, but a pair of back-to-backs. I mean, that'll test anybody, but especially somebody that's coming off an injury. So let's see if he's ready to go coming out of the chute on the other side of this break.
Ready to go? What about Thatcher Demko? Or what's your level of concern there? Obviously, we saw him leave the game. Rick Tocchet telling me after the game, no, it didn't happen in warm-up, despite what Sportsnet had possibly figured out. It happened in the game, and basically Kevin Lankinen saying, he didn't have any idea he was going to have to come in.
Yeah, concern, obviously, just given the backstory of Thatcher Demko and all that he's been through to get to this point. And anytime that he has to leave a game, we saw it in Seattle. It was back spasms, and that kept him out for, a week or 10 days, but ultimately not that serious. I want to take Rick Tocchet at face value, but Rick Tocchet has also told us a lot of guys are day-to-day or questionable, and then it turns out to be a lot more than that. And so that's not a shot at the head coach. It's just that's the way he handles all of these situations. I do believe him that in the immediate aftermath, he probably didn't have great detail, but look, Thatcher Demko was dialed in, coming off the shutout performance against Colorado, and was good again in San Jose, only faced the 6 shots. Like Quinn Hughes, these guys are elite-level athletes. They know when something isn't quite right, and I think Thatcher particularly is in tune to his body, and so probably was the best course of action. But again, for a team that's starting to hit its stride, having success, made these trades, guys have stepped in, they've fit in well, things were going the Canucks' way, and then, of course, when Thatcher Demko has to leave a hockey game, there's a big level of concern. Now, Kevin Lankinen offsets that because the guy's just been terrific, whether the starter or coming in cold. That's twice now, the game in Seattle and this one where he's had to come in cold and delivered a victory for the Vancouver Canucks. That's not easy, especially when his mind was probably, all right, I'm not playing tonight. I've got a bag to pack. I got to get to Four Nations, all that kind of stuff. And then he's thrust in 10 minutes in against a team like Toronto that can light goaltenders up. So credit to Kevin Lankinen. He's just been so solid for the Vancouver Canucks. But I do wonder, are we going to get any sort of update on Thatcher Demko during the break here, or are we going to, will it be all eyes on that first practice when the Canucks reconvene next week?
it's one of the caveats for the poll question, which we thought was just going to be a measurement of the skeptics. We knew full well going in that it was going to be a positive outcome, but how many people are still holding out? And the injuries would be a big reason for the holdout here. The poll question, just after the recent run of form and with all the trades, are you convinced the Canucks make the playoffs right now? And, anybody on the other side might be saying, until Quinn Hughes is back, until you see Thatcher Demko back for a month straight, they might be holding out because of the wording there. Are you convinced? Where are you on this, Jeff?
I'm not sure I can get convinced, just because another Quinn Hughes injury certainly could derail their best hopes here. But I feel a lot better. The fact that they are back above the playoff bar. Hey, it wasn't that long ago that they were down by 5 points to the Calgary Flames and then needed a win. I think it was on the same day that Calgary had an earlier win, got to 5, and then the Canucks were able to get back within 3, but they were still trailing by 3, and now look at them go, 6-1-1 in their last 8 hockey games. I wrote about this at Canucks Army before I departed, and it was my Sunday column, but anytime you make a trade, you hope guys are going to come in and fit in and contribute right away. I'm not sure that things could have gone any better for all 3 of the newcomers. Think about it. They get traded to Vancouver, of all places, which has been the front of the hockey shitstorm for all season. They had to be asking, what are we getting ourselves into? Why am I going to Vancouver? And so they land, they lose in overtime to Detroit that first one, but Philip Hedl scored that night. Drew O'Connor did some good things. Marcus Paterson settled in. The next game, they shut out Colorado. Pettersson elects to re-sign here after having even toured the city. I'm not even sure he's seen the mountains yet with the weather that we've had this week. And Drew O'Connor scores the penalty shot winner in San Jose. They win 3 in a row. They win back-to-back on home ice. And for these guys, I think they all want to win, but they want to feel like they belong. And so to be able to contribute, to start to shift the culture and just the feeling in that locker room, it was an incredible week for the Vancouver Canucks. If those guys had all come and the team had middling success and they kind of wondered about their place here, they leave for 2 weeks. What are they coming back to? But I would think they're hungry now to get back here and, just decompress over the break, process the trade, and then hit the ground running. And of course, they haven't spent a shift with Quinn Hughes yet. None of them. So there's that to look forward to as well. So just really an incredible week. And to bring it back to the poll question, that, I feel a whole lot better right now about their chances of, I'm not under grand illusions that they're going to rocket up the standings and chase Edmonton and Vegas, but look at the standings. People have been so focused on the playoff bar. They're right there with Los Angeles. Now, LA's got games in hand. They have a ton of home games left, and the Canucks are in LA for that 3rd game out of the break. So all of a sudden, that becomes a massive hockey game for the Vancouver Canucks. But I'm not sure I'm convinced, but feeling pretty good about the way this team has solidified to put themselves in a position to run this out and be a playoff team.
You talk about 3 new guys, obviously the trade players who came in on trade, but are you ready to include Elias Pettersson, the defenseman, as a 4th new guy that's going to change the meter here?
Well, I'm really curious. He's been terrific, and he's been a ton of fun to watch, and he has been part of this culture shift. All he's done is contributed to a run of games. His NHL debut against the Washington Capitals, who were the best team in the NHL and the highest scoring team. Talk about a baptism by fire, but he survived that. He was part of a shutout win over Colorado, the Leafs on a Saturday night. This hasn't just been a run of games for him. He's been thrown in some real tests and it's looked good. But when Quinn Hughes comes back, you've added Marcus Pettersson. I think really quietly, Derek Forbort, for what he is, has been solid for the Vancouver Canucks.
Yeah.
So
dull but effective.
So is there room on the left side, I guess, is the question. And if there is, who's coming out? Well, he's not playing ahead of Hughes. He's not playing ahead of Pettersson. Could he, shuttle and substitute with Forbort on some nights? Maybe. I think we've seen with this Canucks team, though, that, they've brought guys in from Abbotsford, given them a run, and then sent them back to the minors to sort of hone their craft. I wouldn't be shocked. But at the same time, if you think that he is, part of what you're building here, he's so far ahead of schedule as a 20-year-old 3rd-round pick playing meaningful minutes in the National Hockey League. You're not going to slide him over to the right side. So I don't know. I mean, it's a good problem to have, I suppose, just in terms of, all season long, we've been asking about depth and when are they going to bring in bodies? Well, hey, maybe one of the answers was there in Abbotsford all along, and this is just his time. But at the same time, I kind of feel like he might be the odd guy out ultimately when Quinn Hughes is back and 100% healthy.
The Soucy trade, does it happen during Four Nations, or is this going to be something they need to work on? And if you haven't already commented on the value you think he brings, not on the ice, I mean, like what do they get from him? Are they selling low here, or can they use him as a bit?
I do wonder. I mean, I joked off the top about general managers making deals over the break here. Is there an unwritten sort of rule, certainly in the first week? Like, there isn't an all-star game or an all-star break this year. Are you actually going to move guys? Or are they going to let these players have a week to themselves? And I think Pat wrote that Carson Soucy in Arizona with his young family, that would be tough, obviously, if you're scrambling to pick up your life and move on. So I do wonder if we see much trade activity in this first week of the break. But by the second week, teams are reconvening. Canucks will be practicing as this tournament goes along. I think their first practice is next Tuesday or Wednesday. So even though Rick Tocchet's going to be there with Canada, there will be hockey at the NHL level for all these teams as they get set to relaunch out of the break. So we shall see. Look, I think part of the success here is that, okay, we talked about the logjam on the left side, and Carson Soucy acknowledged that when I talked to him last week, but he slid over to the right pretty seamlessly. He's paired with Elias Pettersson, and the results are what the results are. So, I know that there are a lot of people that don't want to see Noah Juulsen in this Vancouver Canucks lineup unless it's an emergency case. I'm not here to knock Noah, but I think you have seen that the organization feels that they've got 6 or 7, because they've been doing this without Quinn Hughes of late, guys ahead of Juulsen on the depth chart, and one of them would be Soucy over on the right side. So are you better served to try and rehabilitate him and use him over on the right, or sell low? And something tells me that they may try to push forward here with Carson Soucy as a right side guy. And all of a sudden, for all the talk all year about, oh my goodness, that right side and why isn't management doing anything? Well, you got Philip Hronik, who has elevated his play. Tyler Myers has been sensational here for the last week or 2 weeks, and really for most of this season. And now Carson Soucy is a veteran. Again, he's not everybody's cup of tea, but as a third pair guy, I think there's room for him there. So, it comes back to me more about Elias Pettersson and what you do there, because ultimately Quinn Hughes is going to play and play a lot when he gets the green light to go. So, again, they've got some good decisions to have. And dare I say, they actually have a surplus on defense right now after making the Marcus Paterson trade. That's something that I didn't think I would ever get my head around for most of this season, but that's sort of the position they find themselves in right now.
Guys, are they a defense first team now? Is that what the Vancouver Canucks are?
Without a doubt.
Patrick, what did Rick say? They're a win ugly team. Yeah. Right? That was in the coach's own words. He's like,
but I was convinced it was just out of necessity in the short to maybe medium term. But is this just going to be by design? Are they going to be by design over the next 3 years, over like a long period? Are they going to be a 2-1 or a 2.5 to 1.5 kind of team?
Well, I think the results speak for themselves here. Yeah. They beat Boston 2-0 back in November. That was the only game all year that they had won with fewer than 3 goals, up until the start of this stretch where they beat Washington 2-1, they beat San Jose 2-1 in overtime, and they beat the Leafs 2-1. So all of a sudden, and they beat Nashville 3-1 with an empty netter last week. So really, in this 6-1-1 stretch, 4 of the victories essentially have been 2-1. So I think that answers your question right then and there. Now, maybe Elias Pettersson is going to find his game over this break and come back and hit the ground running out of more shifts like he did in the first period the other night against the Toronto Maple Leafs. That would be the hope. But ultimately, I mean, you step back and we marvel at what Quinn Hughes has done, but they've got this glut of forwards that have 35, 34, 33 points. Their leading forward scorer at the break is now Brock Besser with 35 points on the season. So if you start to look at, okay, are they going to be a playoff team? And if they're a wild card team, they're going to run headlong into one of the top teams in the conference. can you lock it down and win 4 games out of 7? Do you stand a chance in the playoffs? Like, yes, you try to make it a slog and slow these teams down, but it's going to be really difficult to win playoff series when you're scoring 1 and 2 goals a night. So dangerous way to live. They're getting away with it right now, but I do think that they probably have to find a way to generate a little bit more.
Peach, what's the template?
I was going to say 2-0 or 3-1 really feels like the ideal Rick Tocchet score.
Do you think they want this long term though, Peach, from what you've been able to glean?
I mean, what we hear from Tocchet so often is there's one thing he clearly wants more of, which is driving to the slot, as Philip Hedl did on his first goal for the Vancouver Canucks. I think more than anything, there is an element of that. We've seen glimpses of it. I mean, certainly I thought the first and third periods on Saturday against the Leafs stood out from the second period. I mean, the second period, Jeff heard me squawking more than once about the lack of an east-west pass that was there. They were looking those off. They were doing that less in the opening and final frame. And I think if we see more of that, because I think it's also just a confidence thing, they've struggled so much to kind of have a complete game. And certainly, Jeff's already said it. It really all comes back to how Elias Pettersson plays. And certainly, I thought I saw a lot there on Saturday night that suggests he's on his way back. And certainly, post-game, as I wrote about yesterday, the vibes were very, very good. And, it feels like a team that's growing in confidence and feels better about itself. So we'll see how it looks when they come back. But certainly, I think the plan here is to carry on, as Jeff said, with the defensive game, but adding a little more on top of that.
I would just add briefly that, and it may sound funny, but honestly, the best thing that maybe happened to the Canucks on Saturday was that the Leafs scored with 5 seconds to go in the second period, because in San Jose, they tried to milk a 1-0 lead across the finish line, got outshot 16-3, and the Sharks scored late, and then the Canucks won, so they get away with it. But I'm with Pat. I thought the third period the other night, outside of the Toronto power play late, and yes, in a 1-goal game, they generated and had some looks, but they held Toronto to 7 shots over the final 20 minutes and actually went to the attack, drew a penalty, scored on their own power play. I think there probably were some lessons learned that you can get away with it against San Jose, but you can't just sit back and think that you're going to get these 1-0 wins across the finish line. So it wasn't pretty. A lot of them haven't been pretty, but they've been damn effective ultimately, and that is the reason that they're 6-1-1 in the last 8 and above the playoff bar here at the break.
Yeah, there's not going to be a lot of plays of the week on the Vancouver Canucks reel, but they're getting wins, and I think fans will take that for the time being, at the very least. Jeff, allow us to get out of your way. Go put your toes in the sand, enjoy some time off, and we'll catch up with you a week from now.
All right, sounds good, guy. Thanks.